So thank you everybody for joining us today. And we really appreciate you taking time out in the middle of your week for us, and not for Rob, it is the middle of the day. We really did have a great kickoff last week with Dr. John Tate, and I'm really excited to introduce today's topic of improving you and your team with Rob Marr. I'm going to actually, sorry, I think I did what exactly I said I was going to do, which is not do what I did. So anyhow, I'll start that off in a second, but just to say, it's just easier if everybody places themselves on mute. The video you can leave open if you like, because actually Rob is going to be kind of engaging a little bit with us. So you are welcome to leave your screens up if you feel comfortable to do so. At the end of our webinar today, I will be discussing a little bit about the upcoming webinar, and that we are recording today. So this is fantastic, absolutely, that you'll be able to see this or pass this along to your friends and colleagues if you would like, and find the information relevant. We certainly know that this is an incredibly important issue for us as we talk about wellness within our team, and especially now with the pandemic. We are seeing that our workforce shortage, our already existing mental health crisis in our profession has really come tumbling down. And not to be pessimistic, because I'm generally an optimist, I think that what we're doing at CVMA certainly is giving us ample information, ample tools to be able to help our teams stay healthy, happy, and keep them in our practices and helping the animals, which is what we all want to do so badly. So I would like to introduce to you, before we get going, Mr. Rob Marr, and he's given me a nice bio, so I'm going to read that off to you. I love bios, and this one's a nice one. So, Rob believes that people should be the #1 focus in every organization. Too often, the works takes the focus instead. Rob is committed to placing 1 million people at the center of their organizations and strategy worldwide. He currently delivers his next level program to public and private sector clients in Ireland, the UK, Canada, and the USA. Rob founded his business in 2007 after a diverse and successful career in sales, marketing, business development, and management. He is one of the leading business coaches in Ireland. Like I said, he's a few hours ahead in all ways from all of us. Also, if you want a chance also before we start up, you're welcome to put a little note in the chat box. Sarah is going to be checking those chats to see if she can ask Rob some questions during and certainly for after. So feel free to use the chat box, and we'll try and answer those questions and get that feedback as soon as we can. Rob, if you wanted to start it up, I'm going to try and fix those slides for you like I did before and get them ready for you. Okay, so I'll stop sharing for a few seconds if you want to start up a little bit, and then I'll get your first slide up in 2 secs, okay?
That's wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
It's always inspiring to read hear words about yourself that you wrote, Patrick, arrogantly about yourself. So I wish someone else had written my bio, but sadly I have to admit that I wrote it. So it's great to get to be welcomed in with such a nice intro. So thank you so much everyone for joining me today. You're joined, I'm joined here by my dog as well, Megan, and I have another dog on the floor as well, Poppy. So if they start causing any problems, please forgive me, but I have to have them in the room because both of them are a bit anxious. So I have to kind of make sure that they're close to me. So forgive me if anything happens there. So we've got an interesting subject today. And when I was talking to Sarah about this originally and thinking about the opportunities for us to spend maybe just half an hour, 40 minutes talking about this subject, what I wanted to do is kind of take a step back, if you like. So if you don't need to have that slide up for now, if you don't mind, Enid, you could just take that down. What I want to do is take a step back, because I think Enid's very nicely detailed some of the challenges that are being faced at the moment in the industry, but also in workplaces all over the world. I'm certainly seeing a huge trend in terms of an increase in stress levels, an increase in workload. the challenge of working from home, the challenge of trying to work from home, reintegrating back into the workplace, managing people remotely, trying to get the best out of them, and all the other challenges that go in our busy working life today, plus the constant interconnectivity that we're dealing with, where people can get to us, contact us nearly 24/7 all the time. So what I want to do, actually, when I started thinking about this, it took me back to a time about 10 years ago that I wanted to share with you. And this is really a story of myself and my own business. It's a story of stress and frustration and difficulty. And it was in many ways the beginning of removing myself from a situation and then reinventing myself and reinventing the business because I had to. So in 2012, I was running my coaching training business here in Ireland, and we were in the middle of the recession. And in 2008, when the recession kicked in Ireland, we actually did quite well. Like, we kind of bounced into it. I started my business in 2007. And we bounced quite positively into the recession. We got some good contracts and we were able to just about weather the storm for the first couple of years. But then it just kept on going. And it didn't seem to show any signs of letting up. And by the time I got to 2012, I was completely, absolutely and utterly stressed, exhausted, tired, and there was no part of my life that was going well. I was putting my family under pressure, myself under pressure. I was working, many times I was working 80+ hours a week, not sleeping enough. We had no cash. We were constantly lurching from check to check because people were delaying. It was in the middle of the recession. People were taking 30, 60, 90 days to pay me. And it came to a head one day in a city called Limerick here in Ireland. And I've been working for the day with a public sector client, and we had done a good day's work. The day was worth a reasonable amount of money, so that was all good. But the problem was I didn't have any cash. And when I finished that day, I went back to the car park and I realized that none of the accounts that I had, none of the credit cards I had any money in them, and I had no cash on me. And I was walking the streets of Limerick, literally looking in the gutter, trying to find change to pay for my car parking to get out of the car park. Unfortunately, a Polish guy called Eric, the guy that was minding the car park, actually lent me 10 euros, gave me 10 euros to pay for myself to get out of the car park. And then on the way home that day, as I'd started to do many times, I was running out of fuel and I had no way to pay for fuel. So what I ended up doing was pulling into the petrol station, filling the car up, pretending that I didn't know why the card wasn't working, and then kind of went on my way, hoping that at some point I could get some cash in and repay them for the petrol. I'd like to say that that was actually rock bottom, but that actually carried on for about 2 years from then. So we had 2 more years going up to 2014, where sometimes it was okay, but many times it wasn't. And we were just completely wrung out and tired and exhausted. And we had other issues going on as well. My father died during that period. We moved house, we built a house, we had a baby. We had lots of other pressures going on. And then I had this business, this unruly business that was running my life. If you'll pardon the pun, the tail was wagging the dog. So I was completely broken at that point. And the most valuable resource I had, myself, I'd abused it. And I really got to my worst point 2 years after that point in Limerick, when my new accountant came to me and said, look, I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, but at the moment you're technically insolvent. And I was like, that, believe it or not, was the straw that made me make the change. It was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I think when I started thinking about improving yourself, improving your team, I found it quite a challenging subject because it made me really reflect on myself, the changes I've had to make, how I let it get so bad, and then how I let it stay so bad for so long, how much I was willing to break myself in order just to keep going. And because I was in this negative state, I actually couldn't see a way out of it. So what I started thinking about when I was putting this together. None of this is wisdom that I didn't have an on the mountaintop moment. I didn't have a kind of, an epiphany. If I just do these 9 things, it's going to be amazing. But these are 9 lessons or 9 steps that I've learned since, that I then kind of work with companies and clients with. And it's been really useful actually for me just to sit down and think about what those specific things are. If I had to pick a small number of activities, a small number of actions or steps you could take, what would I tell people if I had half an hour? Just to kind of, these things can help you run a better business. These things can help you have a better life. These things can help you get more balance, get your work and life back in balance. So what I want to do is share some of those lessons with you. And again, this is not some epiphany that I had. It's not some kind of, if you follow these 9 things, everything's going to be perfect, of course. But they are 9 things that I really believe made a massive difference in my life. And they're also things that have made a big difference in my clients' lives as well, I'm proud to say. So I've kind of loosely hung these under 3 headings, which is improving yourself, improving your skills, and improving your systems. Okay, and I'm going to basically make some simple 3 points and make a few points underneath each of those. What I'd encourage you to do is, first of all, take notes. So if there's anything that resonates with you, please write it down. Maybe make it as a mental note to yourself to have another look at it, or maybe contact me or talk to a colleague or talk to a friend or someone else about it. But definitely please do take some notes, because the slides, as you'll see, don't really have a lot on them apart from the point. Second thing is that it's actually okay to disagree with what I'm saying. It's in fact, it's essential that you disagree. You need to have a dissenting voice. You need to actually kind of go, well, I don't think that's true, and this is why, because it helps you challenge and develop new behaviors and attitudes, because you may well be right. Just because something's true for me, it doesn't mean it has to be true for you. So please don't think that you have to agree with everything I'm saying, but let it, I suppose, temper your or manage your own knowledge, your own experience, your own ideas, so that you can maybe rethink them or even just double down on them if you think that's necessary. And then lastly, the thing I'd like to encourage you to do is, in general, adopt a growth mindset. And if you're not familiar with the term, it was coined by Carol Dweck with her book Mindset, and it looks at how we can adopt 2 different mindsets in life. It's her position, which is a growth mindset, which is interested in learning mistakes, developing from mistakes and growth, or you can adopt a fixed mindset, which is about perpetuating old ideas, old habits, old behaviors, or being reluctant to take on board new information. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get straight into it, just looking at the time there. So the first part I'm going to talk about is self, okay? How we can help ourselves before we even think about helping others. And there's 3 kind of key ways that I believe you should do that. So I'm going to start with my first one. And this was actually quite literally the first thing that I did, because when my accountant said to me, oh, you're insolvent, this is the end of the road for you here, you need to make some drastic changes, the first thing I realized was that I hadn't a clue how to fix this, because I had already created the problem and then I kept perpetuating the problem. One of the ways that we make bad decisions is called a thing called status quo, where we consistently make decisions designed to perpetuate the existing situation. So I realized at that point, I actually hadn't got a clue what to do. I created this mess and I couldn't fix it. So the first thing I did, and it was actually one of the smartest things I ever did, was to get a coach / and a mentor that has what I wanted. So I started ringing around some people that I knew, and I was fortunate enough to meet a gentleman called Nathan Gold, who's a sales coach in America, and he was incredibly generous with his time. Still to this day continues to be generous with his time. In fact, he's actually written the foreword for my book that's coming out soon. And what I realized was that there was actually, in the future, there was no need for me to make the mistakes that other people have already made for me. He was able to kind of go, you've probably done this. I was like, yeah. And you've probably tried this as well, haven't you? I was like, oh my God, yes, I have done that. And he said, probably didn't work, did it? I was like, no, it didn't work. And then he was able to highlight to me areas that I could change, I could develop in my business, ways that I could think about it. And it was quite literally life-changing for me. He showed me a world that I didn't know existed because he was already in it. And I was only aspiring to be in it. What I found, and that was in 2015, 2016 when I met Nathan, and this has been consistently true with my clients as well, the more successful people are, the more inclined they are to help you. The more successful people are, the more inclined they are to help you. They like to help people, and they're often surprised how not more people ask them. I remember I was working with a client of mine, and it runs a very successful business. It's 1,000 people. It's built up to like $50 million business. And every day he goes for a walk, and he asks anyone in his business can come and join him for a walk and have a chat to him. And every day he's lucky if 1 or 2 people join him. And to me, that seems incredible when you could get access to someone that's built this incredible business that they're rejecting an opportunity to learn from him. So get a coach or get a mentor that has the thing that you want and see how they can help you. I would say this, even if they say no, don't forget you're still in the same place before you asked. So a no is still not a risk, right? You're still exactly where you are, but you've at least tried. You can, of course, then move on to someone else. So definitely start with a wish list. And if number 1 doesn't say yes, then maybe move on to number 2. What I would encourage you to be wary of is that I would be wary of people that give you unsolicited advice. Okay, unapproved mentors. Typically, people that are offering you advice that you haven't asked for are really not working to your agenda. They're working to their own. So be wary of people that you haven't personally engaged with to help you in your career, in your business. Seek out the advice you want. Don't wait to get the advice you're given. And just as a warning thing for you, be careful of echo chambers that validate your own thinking. Okay, it's not useful to go and speak to people that agree with you, because you just end up going round in circles. You need someone to provide a dissenting word, someone with contrary advice, someone that can challenge your thinking. Otherwise, you're just going to perpetuate more of your existing behaviors. So step 1, get a coach, get a mentor, and make sure it's someone that's actually ahead of you. Don't choose a peer or someone that's already in the same situation as you. They can't help you. It's only people that are ahead of you that can help you. So that's step 1. Step 2, please, Enid, if you don't mind. This is always an interesting one for me because I was very poor at this, and this was the next thing I did after I hired my coach and mentor. Get some goals that excite you. Okay, get some goals that excite you. Now, the interesting thing for me is whenever I ask that question, how many of you have goals, and I ask people to put up their hands in a room or in a workshop or on screen, I find that a lot of people put their hand up and they say, I have goals. And then I say, how many of you have written them down? And then all the hands drop. And what I would argue is that if you haven't written down your goals, what you have are not goals. What you have are aspirations. What you have are hopes of things that you hope to happen, but you're not really planning on it. It would be nice if they happened, but you're not planning on them happening. So it's extremely important that you write down your goals. It creates a subconscious contract between yourself and your future. And another important technique to do with your goals is to write them in the present tense. So don't write them as something you're working towards, write them as something you have already. I have this, I have that. It's okay to want things. And I often see it that people apologize to people for the goals that they have. In fact, one time I asked a lady I was working with to write down her goals, and she wrote them down, and then I saw her cross them out and then rewrite them. And I asked her what she was doing, and she said, oh, I felt like I was getting carried away. So when you write your goals down, remember, don't ever change the goal. Pick your big goal, pick the things that you want. The only thing that you need to change is the time frame if you find that you're struggling to achieve it. Don't minimize your goals. Change the time frame. Okay? You have lots and lots and lots of time. Okay, one of the ways that I've learned how to set my goals is actually in 25-year chunks, which I know seems excessive, but one of those, the things which is great about that is it takes the pressure off. Like within 25 years, I have 100 quarters to achieve what I want. That's loads of time. And that still won't bring me to a time in my life when I would like to start working. I'm on this program called Strategic Coach, and we did this event last year, and I was amazed, but there was so many people in their 60s and 70s writing 25-year plans. It's like, why wouldn't we? Why would we not want to live to be 85 and 95 and be intentional about our lives? So you have time. However old you are, whatever stage of your career you are, you have time. Set 25-year expectations. A great question I learned in Strategic Coach, and it's called the Dan Sullivan question, is if we were to meet in 12 months from now, what would have to have happened for you to be both personally and professionally happy? If we were to meet 12 months from now, what would have to have happened? Not nice to or optionally, but what would have to have happened for you to be happy personally and professionally? It's a great question. It's a great question to ask your people. Ask your teams, ask your colleagues. Try and understand where people are trying to get to. So it's important for you to get some goals. But I would say this, you have to look after yourself in the process. Okay, goals are great, okay? But you can have 100 goals if you're healthy. Okay, when you're unhealthy, you've only got one goal. So it's really important that you look after yourself in the process of trying to achieve what you want to achieve. And remember, don't worry about changing the time frame. Keep your goal, just change the time frame if it's not going well for you. So that's my step number 2. Get some goals that excite you and set big time frames available for them. Don't put yourself under unnecessary pressure. They're only your goals. If you don't achieve them, you can change the time frames. Number 3, in terms of yourself and how you can look after yourself and improve yourself. And this is kind of 2 conceptual ideas that you may or may not be familiar with. So the first one is to get above the line. And for some of you, you might not know what that means. So there is a concept in coaching that we use all the time, which is called above the line, below the line. And what it does is it describes 2 very different types of behaviors. So first of all, let me describe what above the line means. And it's just 3 words, okay? It is accountability, responsibility, ownership. So above the line behaviors, accountability, responsibility, and ownership. Conversely, there's also below the line behaviors. Blame, excuses, denial. Blame, excuses, denial. Take a minute now or later to reflect on which side of that line you're on at the moment. Are you being accountable? Are you being responsible? Are you taking ownership? Or are you making excuses? Are you blaming others or situations? Are you in denial even that there's a problem? That for me was very, very challenging because I was definitely below the line. Everything was a problem, couldn't see any solutions. I needed to completely shift the way that I was behaving to get into a pattern and a set of behaviors that would actually allow me to be successful at what I was doing. So just take a minute to reflect. If you start hearing yourself making excuses, if you start hearing yourself talking about how someone else has done something to you or someone else is stopping you do something, that might be you too. So we have to take ownership of our situations. But that doesn't mean that we flog ourselves to death to do it, but we have to be responsible and accountable for where we're at. So the other part of that is being out of the box, which I know that sounds like a strange term. It's actually from a book that if any of you I've met before, I haven't had a look through the room, but I may have met some of you before. I recommend this book to absolutely everybody from a leadership point of view. And it is my favorite leadership book. Okay, and it's called Leadership and Self-Deception. Okay, Leadership and Self-Deception. And it's written by the Arbinger Institute. And what they talk about with behaviors is how sometimes we can place ourselves at the center of a problem. We can place ourselves as being the victim of a problem. And it talks about how when we act contrary to the way that we should behave, we're betraying ourselves. We're betraying our best instincts. So what I want to do, and I do this often on coaching calls, I just wanted to share the 7 characteristics of self-betrayal. Okay, and I'm just going to read them directly out of the book. I'm not improvising here. This is literally how they're defined in the book. So just to give you something to think about. So an act contrary to what I feel I should do for another is called an act of self-betrayal. Okay, an act contrary to how I feel I should do for another is called an act of self-betrayal. So when I betray myself, I see the world in a way that justifies my self-betrayal. When I see the world in a self-justifying way, my view of reality becomes distorted. I start to look at things through my hurt perception of it rather than just looking at the situation itself. So when I betray myself, to use the term I've shared with you on screen there, I enter the box, and this is the concept in the book. You go into the box. You're in the box or you're out of the box. Okay? So over time, certain boxes become characteristic of me, and I carry them with me. So these attitudes that we develop actually then turned into more than an attitude or a thought. They turn into how we behave. They turn into how we think. By being in the box, I provoke other people to be in the box with me. And then I want you to pay attention to this last point, because I think this really sums it up quite nicely. In the box, we invite mutual mistreatment and obtain mutual justification. We collude in giving each other a reason to stay in the box. So what we have to do, as I had to do and still have to do regularly, is when we're meeting the challenges of life, we don't put ourselves at the center of that situation, but we have to view things as they factually actually are as often as possible. It's not something you can permanently stop. Like, we all end up in the box sometimes with some people in certain situations, but it's about bringing awareness to how you're actually behaving to enable you to perform at a better level. So as much as possible, try and stay above the line, be accountable, responsible, and take ownership. I was blaming everything on everyone else up until I made these changes. It was always someone else's fault. Try and be aware of whether you're putting yourself at the center of a problem, whether you're making yourself the victim, or whether you're actually trying to be helpful and do the thing that you feel you really should do for the other person. So that's step 3, and that's my first part about self. Okay. Second part I want to talk to you about, if you don't mind moving me along, Enid, thank you, is around the skills that we develop. Okay. Invest in your development first and build your work around it. Now, this can actually be a difficult concept, especially if you're running your own small business or small practice. This can actually be quite a difficult concept. So I'm going to be quite specific about what I think you need to do, because I've done this myself and it made a profound difference. You need to block time for yourself in your calendar for the full next 90 days, for all the time you need to develop and invest in yourself. First, before your calendar gets full of everyone else's agenda, you need to put your time for you in first. When we don't do that, we are constantly trying to squeeze what we need in around everyone else's agendas. Okay, we're constantly trying to fit around everyone else's agendas. If you have to change any of your commitments to your own development, do not cancel them. Move them, postpone them, change them, but don't take them out of the diary. It's so easy just to delete something and cancel it and then never go back to it. And that, as I discovered a couple of times in the last 7 or 8 years, is a slippery slope back to not doing it at all. So never cancel it. Move it, definitely, if you need to, because of other work pressures, but never cancel it. When you're constantly learning, you tend to perform better. When you're constantly learning, you tend to perform better. You keep up to date, and you're often ahead of the market because no one else is investing time in their own development. So it allows you a competitive advantage over people that you're working against. It gives you market opportunities that you might not have thought about before. So I would say that when you stop learning, you tend to cling to your old ideas. When you stop learning, we can often stick to practices that aren't serving us anymore. But that becomes the way you've done things. Well, that's my knowledge, as though that's then an end date. Learning and development is a continuous thing for our entire careers. So you need to consistently invest in it, however long you've been in practice, however long you've been in business. It is the number one thing you can do for yourself to help you get to where you're trying to get to. Keep putting yourself first in terms of your own development, and make sure the work comes second. And what you'll find is that the way you do the work then actually improves and everything lifts. The final point to make on this is, once you've learned something, anything, share it. If any of your team have learned something, anything, get them to share it. I see it over and over and over again in different organizations, in different parts of the world. Someone will attend some training or a webinar like this, and then the flow of that information stops the minute the button gets closed to the meeting. If you learn anything today, and I do mean anything, it could just be a thought, it could be a small, tiny, oh, that was quite interesting, share it with somebody. Share all of it with somebody, because the thing that was of no relevance to you might be of huge relevance to somebody else. The whole point of learning is to move from a learner to a teacher. Okay, you should not be a block for the flow of information. You should just be a conduit for it. It should come in, should get passed on. Should come in, gets passed on. If you want your people in your organization to really thrive, start sharing. Share what you know, share what you learn, and get them to share what they know and share what they've learned. Remember, you are your most valuable asset. You are your most valuable asset. So it's like a car. You've got to service it. If you want it to perform in the long run, you've got to service it. You've got to put energy, time, effort into making sure it's in the best possible shape. Okay, step number 5.
Excuse me, Rob, can I ask a question?
Of course you can.
So Sarah here. So if you already have a coach or a consultant, and now you need to make sure your team understands the message and are willing to change, how do you accomplish that? When you're sharing this information, how do you accomplish that it's not falling on deaf ears, I guess? So
is it that are you trying to figure out how to make sure that they engage with it? I mean, is it that you're passing it on, or I'm not quite sure I understand what you mean. Is it that they're resisting the information you're giving them?
Yes. Hannah posed this question. Hannah, if you want to turn on your microphone and then elaborate, you're most welcome to do so. But yes, receptive to the information that you're sharing.
Okay, that's a fantastic question. Okay, so one of the issues can be is, oh, sorry, is that you, Hannah? Hi, Hannah.
Yeah, so I was trying to unmute. So
no, that's a fantastic question. Go ahead, just elaborate more.
In a nutshell, the situation that I'm in right now is I'm a partner at a veterinary practice. The majority owner is in ways of retirement. So there's as for what the consultant explained, there's a triangle where he's the rescuer, I'm the villain, and the rest of the people are the victims.
Okay.
And I already have told him, I want to be Robin. I want him to be Batman, and I'm happy being Robin. but instead I'm being the Joker, literally. Like, it's terrible. And it doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter the tone. It doesn't matter if I'm polite, which by the record, I'm always polite. I never use a wrong tone, but it's because it comes from me. It's just not well taken. So I'm always the bad person. I'm the one that's making all the changes. And so it's tough. It's really, really tough. When you mention about this above the line, yes, I do feel that I go into a cycle of blame, but it's what I wrote before there. Like, I'm not supposed to be doing a lot of things, but I feel that I have to. Like, and it's just little things. It's just because I don't feel, and I can see it, that the job is not being efficiently done. So like something as simple as replying emails in a timely manner, or like, I don't know, messages that have to be conveyed to the, so every time that I go, I say, hey, such and such, I notice, and then they just get angry at me, and it's just like, me. Okay.
Well, Hannah, I think you've articulated it beautifully. I think, wow, I'd actually love just to talk to you for half an hour on that whole subject, because there's actually so much we could say within it. But if you don't mind me giving you a couple of kind of short answers, Hannah, and if you wanted to kind of, I'm very happy to take a separate call and talk to you about some of the challenges and how you might be able to address them.
Sure.
But what I would say is, when you, okay, so there's a couple of things that play. The core thing is that you're trying to change behaviors, right? You're trying to get other people to change the way they do things and to do them in a different way. And that is extremely difficult, okay? But what I would say to you is, the one way to guarantee that it won't happen is by telling them what to do. Even if you give it a pretty please or a cherry on top, or you ask ever so nicely or in the right tone as you shared, it's never going to work as you saying, look, I really need you just to send the email in a timely fashion. People will literally reject that like that, okay? And even if they do it that time, just to kind of get you off their back, as soon as your back is turned, they'll immediately return back to the old way, right? So the challenge you actually face is really more to do with how you manage and coach your colleagues by using effective direct questioning to get them to identify what the issues are, rather than you highlighting them to them.
Okay.
So if you take a very simple concept, people will support what they create. So if you're trying to create it, you're actually pushing a lot of energy into a space where no one wants to receive it. So what you need to find to do, and I'm happy very happy actually to share my details, and we can pick up a call about it. But what you need to do is allow the person to understand the problem for themselves. So what I would encourage you in is that the challenge you're facing is by no means impossible. In fact, it's very, very addressable. But what you won't be able to achieve is any change by continuing to do what you're doing, because you've established that. So as a bare minimum, before we can talk, I would suggest you just stop trying for now and stop stressing out about it, okay? Because without the right approach to it, you're just going to create more frustration, and then you do end up going below the line, don't you? Of course you do, because it's driving you crazy.
Like, so crazy. Like, it's just like, it makes me feel sometimes that I'm a different species. It's just like,
yes,
seriously, like, why can't you do this? Like, this is just so simple.
Yeah.
So like, is it just me? Like, am
No.
I just making this up? Like,
no, it's because you're working with people. That's what it is. It's because you're working with people. This is how people are, right? Not all people, but this is how a lot of people are, right? So this is just to do, if you think about it logic, what I'd like to do, just as a little exercise, is take yourself out of this situation. So if we talked about that in the box, out of the box, remember, this is not personal, Hannah. This has got nothing to do with you, right? It genuinely has nothing to do with you. So don't personalize it for yourself. That's an additional step that you're adding that you don't need to take. Okay, so that removal of yourself, and then relax and just think about, okay, this is a situation that I need some new skills to address because my old skills are not working. Okay, it's no more or less than that, but really you shouldn't take it as any fault of yours, Hannah. Okay, it's just You just need some new skills. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem. I'm going to shout out my email address anyway. You're very welcome to reach out to me, and we'll have a little chat about it, and I can give you more specific
Sure,
things.
if you can eventually share your contact information somehow, that would be great.
Yeah,
please.
No problem. I'd be more than happy, and maybe a couple of points I'm going to share with you shortly might help as well. So
yeah, thank you.
That's an awesome question. Thank you, Hannah. Is it just me hearing that voice, or is it anyone else?
Yeah, I think somebody might be accidentally off mute. So if we can just put ourselves back on mute, thanks. That sounds better. Thank you.
Or don't. It could be fascinating what you're chatting about, so we maybe can have a listen to that instead of me. Anyway, that's fine. So Hannah, thank you so much. That's a great question. So the next thing we're talking about is valuing your time above everybody else's. Okay, so that's step number 5 for me, valuing your time above everyone else's. Basically, in short order, there are 4 different types of activities that we can be engaged with, and I love this idea. There's activities where we're incompetent, right, where we're completely useless at it, and it would be far better that nearly anybody did it than us. There's areas where we're competent, where we have a skill, but it's not something that we do it because we have to do it. And then there are areas where we're excellent, but it doesn't necessarily make us happy. And then we've got areas that we call unique ability, areas where you're brilliantly talented, fantastically capable, you love doing that type of work. And what I want to put to you as a challenge in terms of valuing your own time is to really be honest with yourself about where your competencies lie, and then start to move or engineer your work to where you can spend most of your time leaning into your unique ability. I've worked with a lot of vets now, and I've never ceased to be amazed by how many of them are holding on to tasks which could literally be done by nearly anybody. Literally by anybody. Administrative tasks, organizational tasks, bookkeeping tasks, accountancy tasks, you name it, the list goes on and on and on, but we won't let go. That means that we don't value our time, because we don't value what we could be doing with it. We're slavishly sticking to the thing that we always do with it. So you have to make some changes in how you spend your time. So you must value your time above everybody else's. When you put yourself first, it allows you to perform at a higher level. That's a fact. So other people also have unique abilities that are not yours. So the things that you're poor at is often something that really lights up somebody else. So stop holding that person back by holding on to something you're not great at, and let someone that loves doing that get on with it. Both of you will be much happier for it. Okay? So what I want to consider with how you value your time is that currently you're getting the results from the results you're getting currently are based on how you're spending your time. If you want to get different results, you need to spend your time differently. And I was spending my time in all the wrong places. Even when I took on Marina, who runs my office now, first thing I said to her was, you'll never do invoicing. I'll always do my invoicing. 6 months later, she's doing my invoicing. I thought I could never let go of that. It's amazing. Once you start seeing someone that's competent, you just want to let go of everything then. You really do. So value your time. Try and find ways to lean into the areas that you're uniquely talented, that you can add some real value to yourself, to your business, and to your colleagues. Okay, let's keep going. I'm conscious of time, so I need to make sure that we keep moving. Step number 6, invest in your people and then add value to your customers. Okay, so they're 2 different things. So first of all, if you have a team, not all of you will do, of course, maybe some of you are part of the team, but if you have a team, put them at the center of your focus, make them your priority. They are the people that make this whole thing work. And if you don't put them first, things won't work. Okay, people deliver the majority of tasks. Even when there's systems, it's people using the systems. So put them at the center of your business. They are your greatest asset outside of yourself. Okay, they're often one of our most expensive assets. And you know, the average investment in training in North America per capita is $1,250 per year. Okay, that's not enough. Okay, it's not even a controversial opinion. Focus on what you and your team are learning every day from the work. Okay, use that to help them grow and develop. Don't make the work the priority. The work is a byproduct of a well-functioning team. Okay, there are lots of things that you do that are massively inefficient and you should stop doing them. So let your team help you figure out what those things are. Your customer will benefit by that happening because you'll have less work to do and you'll actually start freeing up some time to think about how you can add some value for them. Whether it's experiential or about new protocols or new technology or new systems or hardware or services, the more you try to add value for your customers, the more you'll win. I generally found that the organizations that add the most value to their customers are the ones that win most consistently, because you're thinking about how to improve their situation. You're not just trying to cope with what you've got at the moment. Invest time in understanding their goals, their ambitions, their expectations. I love that quote where great service is the anticipation of a need. It's the anticipation of a need. What can you see now that you know they'll love and want in the future? You're the experts of what you do. You're probably already thinking, I wish I had time to do this. I wish I had time to do that. You have to prioritize that above the other things. Okay. And we go to our last point. So step 7, systems. I'm a big fan of these. Anyone that knows me will know this, but using tools like DISC, Kolbe, and emotional intelligence reports can give you a great insight into how people work, how they prefer to work, how they're likely to perform. And it really does a great job in helping you recruit better too. So people are complicated. I don't think you need me to tell you that. People are complicated. And people can become more or less complicated at different times. So situations change people's behaviors. So using these different psychometric tools will help you understand them on a completely different level from the superficial, because guess what? People don't always tell you what they're thinking. So psychometric tools can help you become a better coach. So let me just briefly touch on what each of those are. DISC helps you understand a person's preferences. Okay, it's how they prefer to be. It's how they prefer to work. So DISC looks at 4 different things within someone's personality: their dominance, their influence, their steadiness, and their compliance. And it looks at how they're likely to behave with those different aspects of a personality. So someone with a high level of dominance is going to be quite tricky because they're aggressive or assertive. They want things to happen. Whereas someone with a high level of steadiness is someone that wants things to just happen slowly, consistently, one job at a time, please, and let me finish it. So understanding people's preferences help you hire better and help you manage work with them better as well. There's no point giving someone with a high S 20 things to do. They'll leave. Okay, you need to find the right people for the right work. So DISC is a great way of helping you with that. Kolbe is a very interesting one, Kolbe. It helps you understand how people behave when they're striving towards something. So it looks at them in different areas. It looks at their fact finder, how much information do they need to make a decision. It looks at their follow through, how likely are they to complete a task. It looks at their risk focus, so on their quick start, are they quite quick to get things going? And are they good implementers? Are they able to build or construct or make things? So Kolbe is a fantastic tool, very, very affordable too. It's like $50 or something, $55, and you can get incredible insight. And then lastly, EQ, or emotional intelligence, is the final piece. And I find this a great coaching tool for people where they can self-assess them, their own perception of themselves about a whole range of different things like empathy and so on, looking at how they relate to themselves, and also then how to understand other people's emotional intelligence. So these are fantastic tools that are very, very cost effective and give you insight way beyond anything that a conversation could provide for you. So one of the systems I really encourage you to recommend is invest in getting good with using these systems to help you understand yourself and your people. They can also finally be good as a insight tool for people's performance management too. So you'll see quite often where people are out of sync with their work that you might have performance issues too. So they can give you an insight before you actually have a problem. So that's step 7. Step number 8, Enid, if you don't mind, thank you very much, is use tools that help you plan and challenge your thinking. Okay. You need to find some tools that help you remain consistent. Okay, and I would suggest if you're not good with it, then don't make the mistake of trying to do it yourself. I have wasted years and countless amount of euros and dollars signing up for systems and packages and programs and processes that I thought I could use well. And then I realized that I'm useless at using those things. I'm incompetent at following a system. I've no follow through. And actually I need somebody else to manage the system for me. Okay, but you do need systems, and I'm going to share 3 different ones that I'd recommend to you right now. One is a system called ClickUp that we use with a few clients, and actually Marina uses it with me to manage our own business, which is a project management tool which you can share and group tasks and get people involved and update and all those kind of things. You can create subgroups and everything. So it's a fantastic system for keeping you on track, for planning, getting organized, and making sure everyone's held accountable for what they've committed to do. An impact filter is a strategic coach tool, and again I'm going to share my email address shortly, and you feel free to email me and I'm happy to share those tools with you. But it looks at the goal you're trying to achieve, the reason you're trying to achieve it, the expected outcomes. It looks at what's good about the idea, it looks at what's bad about the idea, and it forces you to come up with specific strategic outcomes to know that that thing has been a success. It's a very good tool to make sure that we don't waste time going down some dead-end paths. I.e., is this worth doing, or is it just part of a brainstorming and meeting we had and we really need to give it a bit more rigor? Okay, so a strategic tool a strategic coach tool called Impact Filter is great. And then finally, I'd encourage you to have an overall plan as well. And I really am very passionate about this. It's vital you include your team in planning. Top-down plans don't work. Okay, just to speak to Hannah's point that she made earlier, people have to engage with their ideas, otherwise they're not going to feel part of where you're trying to get to. So get people involved early days with your planning, your goals, your ambitions, share it with them, use it as an opportunity for them to give you some support or give you some suggestions, but create an overall plan, no longer than 12 months, and it doesn't have to be that detailed, and then always have a 90-day plan. Always have a 90-day plan. And it's a good idea to get, if you've got a larger practice or a larger business, to get your departments to present their plans to you about how they're going to achieve their portion. I can share examples of all of these. If anyone wanted to email me, my email address is just simply rob@robmarr.ie, rob@robmarr.ie, and I'm sure we can get that in the chat as well. So feel free to email me and I'd be more than happy to send you on some links and bits and bobs as well as part of that. So finally, okay, last point I want to make is to use your team's 3 I's, okay? 3 I's stand for their ideas, their input, and their intelligence. ClickUp. Sorry, Elaine, that was ClickUp. Just saw that come in there. Hey, I managed it on my own, Sarah. That was good. You said I couldn't do it, but I did it there. That was good. Get into their ideas. Tap into their creativity. Make time every week, every month, to listen to their ideas in terms of solving problems and improving your organization. They will thank you for it. They will be glad to give you their ideas and suggestions if you don't take them personally. They may be different to what you've always done, so don't be afraid of trialing things for short periods of times with small groups of people and see how it works. Okay, it might just be better. And if it's worse, then we can learn from it. So there's really no downside to it. Input, so get their views on your plans, as I've just mentioned, and ask for input. Give them opportunity to take part and allow them to disagree with you. Okay, allow them to disagree with you. It's fine if they disagree with you. We're in a safe environment, or we should be in a safe environment. When people don't feel able to express their views, you're on the road to a toxic work environment where people shut down ideas and close off people and don't encourage engagement. If this generation doesn't believe it, wait till you see the next one. They're all about not working in toxic environments. Okay, they just won't have it. So we need to get people engaged and get the benefit. And then lastly, use their intelligence. They have coalface smarts. They are at the coalface. They have smarts that you don't have because they're doing the jobs that you used to do, but they're doing it now. That's more important because it's now, not 3 years ago, not 5 years ago. So use their intel, use their intelligence to help improve your business as well. There is a global issue in workplaces, a global issue with a lack of engagement. Some reports I've read have stated it could be as high as 50% in some workplaces, where they're just literally turning up to do the bare minimum to go home again. That's not a good environment for someone to fulfill their potential. And it's very stressful to manage that person as well. So get them involved. Get them involved. So let me summarize. Okay, last 3 points, because Sarah's like tapping the wrist and making sure that I'm going to be on time here. So sorry, Sarah, I'll be quick. In brief, if nothing changes, nothing changes. If you are in any way unhappy with any element of your business that you would like to change or improve, it is not going to happen by doing nothing. But don't forget, doing nothing is always the first option. So you have to decide to take doing nothing off the table before any change is actually going to happen. But let me encourage you that the change is possible, but not by hoping it's going to happen. You have to commit to it. Focus on learning, not on tasks. It shifts the culture in an organization 180 degrees to move in a much more powerful and positive way. And then finally, put yourself first. You need to be selfish, especially if you're the business owner. Put yourself first. You can't pour from an empty cup. So you need to look after your time. You need to look after yourself. And of course, you need to look after your people as well. And in turn, they will look after you. So if you want to find out any more about me or any of the work we do, I have a website called yourpracticelegacy.com, yourpracticelegacy.com, and you can find out a bit about the programs that we run specifically with veterinary practices to help you deal with some of the issues that we've talked about today. Well, other than that, thank you so much, everyone, for your time. Enid, thank you in particular for your help and assistance with the slides today. It's been really helpful for me, so I very much appreciate it. And if anyone has time, I have time, so if anyone has time, I'm able to stay on for some questions. And if you don't have time, then please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be more than happy to engage with you in whatever way you see fit. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob, so much. I'm going to just let everybody know that we'll probably stay on for another 5 minutes or so, if that's okay, Sarah. I think there's going to be some interesting questions. So we'll leave it going a little bit. But for those of you that certainly are going to leave us now, again, thank you so much, Rob. This was an extraordinary webinar. I learned so much, and having done the disc many times, you probably already pegged me as to what I was when you saw the first things come out of my mouth, that I'm a high D and I keep moving further on out. And so as I was a high D, I took all sorts of notes during this, and my favorite one is that aspirations are not goals. So I'm going to get on those goals right away. But thank you, really, truly an exceptional opportunity to meet you and hear all about this. We have recorded this today, so that will be available. We'll let you know how. If not on our website directly, we will be sending an email around. And also to not forget the upcoming webinar next week on team culture with Dr. Irene Marr. So for those of you who can't stay, thank you again. And thank you, CVMA, for putting this together. And Sarah, of course.